It's that lovely time of year when taxes are due here in the United States. Both state and federal taxes are due. And so, if you have a side hustle or business and it's new to you and you're doing your taxes, you can write off many things that are costs of doing business that will reduce your tax payments and thus make your business more profitable. The first thing I think of is business meals. If you take a client out to lunch or something like that, you can write off 50% of the food and drink purchases for that meal. What I do is when I get the receipt, I just make sure the date and the location of the meal on there. I write on there who I was having lunch with and the purpose of that meeting. So, was it a sale or was it financing or whatever? And then the total cost of the meal, including tips. You can write off 50% of that. The second thing is travel expenses. I recently went to the Small Business Expo in Orlando, Florida. I had to fly down there. I had hotel. I had all those kinds of expenses for that trip. Now, the only reason I went there was for the Small Business Expo. So I'm able to write off the entire cost of that trip to Orlando, Florida. The trip must be necessary for your business and it must take you away from home or your city or your location and to conduct that business. You must be traveling away from your tax home for longer than a normal workday. The third thing is your car. So you can do this two different ways. You can either write off the cost of the car if the car or truck is only used for business. Most times, especially with side hustles, that's not true. But what you can do is you can write off 65.5 cents per mile that you use that vehicle for your business. So if I drive to Office Depot to buy a new printer, which I recently did, I not only can write off that new printer, but I can also write off the mileage to go and get that printer. So if you're taking someone to lunch and you're driving there, whatever the mileage is, if it's for business, you can write it off at 65.5 cents per mile. The fourth one is business insurance. You must have some kind of business insurance. And I've talked about liability and all those kinds of things. And we have separate videos on that. But the premiums that you pay for that business insurance, you can write those off. The home office, all the things I have in my home office, from the computer to the microphone to my printer, all those kinds of things, you can write those off because I only use those for business. I wouldn't have a microphone like this if I wasn't using it for business. So if it's a real business expense for your office, you can write those off. Office supplies, printers, pens, paper clips, computers, any kind of work related software, you can write those off. Phone and internet expenses, if they're being used for business, you can write those off. If half of your internet usage is for business, then you can write 50% off. The IRS has guidelines on what percentage, but basically it's if it's only for business, you can do 100%. If it's shared, you're also using it for other purpose beside business, it's 50%. Business interest and bank fees, that's pretty obvious. And those are expenses. If you took out money in order to expand your business or whatever, you can write off the interest on those. Depreciation, if you buy a big ticket item, say if you are doing food services and you buy a refrigerator, you can depreciate the cost of that over the lifetime of the asset. There are obvious tables that list how long everything from refrigerators to buildings last. But spread it out over that time and you'll take it every year a piece at a time. I had rental properties for a long time. And so everything I bought that was a capital goods kind of thing, like refrigerators and stoves, and I would depreciate those over the lifetime of that expected device or that appliance. Professional services, you're going to have lawyers, you're going to have bookkeepers, you're going to have tax accountants, all those kinds of things. All those fees are deductible. Salaries and benefits. Now, if you have an employee and it's not a sole proprietorship, but instead an LLC or something like that, and the salary is reasonable and necessary to run that business, then you can write that off. The services delegated to the employee must be provided. In other words, no, you can't make up services. I can't say my son, who is 3 years old, did something. It has to be a real service that you can show what that person did, in which case you can write off those salaries. Charitable contributions. I give, as part of my business, I give charitable contributions every year. So I can write those off on my business income. Education. I'm always studying things, and I have so many courses I've taken. I can't list them all, but every time I buy one or I buy a subscription to one, then I can write off those expenses because the courses I can show directly that those courses are related to the kind of business I'm in. If it's not related to business, you can't write it off. But seminars, webinars, courses related to your field of work, your trade, publications, subscriptions, books related to your industry, those kinds of things can all be written off. Child independent care. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but if you have to have care for either elder adults or children in order to work, you can write off the cost of that child care or that dependent care. Energy efficiency. This is a unique one that's come up over the last few years, and that is upgrades to even your home to ensure it's more energy efficient can qualify for a tax credit. You can claim up to 30% of the cost of alternative energy equipment for your home, including solar panels, water heaters, wind turbines, those kinds of things. Make sure you check the IRS website for the details on what the home energy tax credits are for each one of those kinds of things. Investments. If you need to borrow money in order to make investments, then you can write off the interest paid on that loan. You can deduct the interest up to the point that it matches what you earned on the investment. Retirement contributions. I hope that you are putting some money away from your business for your future retirement. And what you put away, as long as it's a total IRA contribution or whatever, it cannot exceed the total income that you earned for that year. And there are limits in terms of contribution, which the IRS lists very simply. You can write those off. Advertising and promotion is the next one. And that is everything you do to promote your business, from buying business cards to signage to website design, all of those things in order to advertise or market your product or service can be written off. Client and employee entertainment. You can, as long as you discuss business during the meeting or during the meal that you took that client. So if I take someone out to lunch, I've got to make sure that I discussed business that can show that this is a business relationship. I'm not just taking some friend out for lunch and writing it off to the business. You can write off 50% of the cost. Startup expenses, even if you haven't had your business up and running, the IRS is really generous and lets you deduct up to $5,000 in startup expenses before you even launch your business. Those things can be like mileage, office expenses, office supplies, health insurance premiums, business phone calls, continuing education, parking, business trips, all those kinds of things. But it's even before you have the business launched, up to $5,000. I hope this is a reminder of at least 20 things that you should be looking at to lower the cost of your business by lowering your taxes to make you more successful and your business more profitable. Thank you.